Let's begin with something simple. Before people listen to what you're saying, they register how you say it. Actually, before that, they register how you exist in that space. This isn't some modern branding insight or a TikTok trick. It's something older than philosophy and politics. People instinctively recognize presence before argument. They feel coherence before they hear reasons. And they sense authority before it even tries to justify itself. You've experienced this. Everyone has. Someone walks into a room and, without raising their voice or asserting anything, the atmosphere in the room shifts. Conversations quiet down, attention reorganizes itself. No one announces it, but everyone feels it. And that quality, whatever you want to call it, has always existed. Today, people jokingly call it aura, and when they are talking about aura farming, half the time they're joking. But the joke only works because it points to something real. What they're trying to name is not ego, not performance theater, not manipulation or performance. Aura is not about being flashy or impressive. It's not about trying to dominate attention. At its core, aura is something much quieter and much harder to fake. It's the visible coherence between someone's inner order and their outer form. When the inside and the outside line up, people can feel it. When they don't, people feel that too, even if they can't explain why. Every civilization that lasted understood this, sometimes explicitly, sometimes instinctively. Authority was never treated as purely functional. Leaders didn't just do things, they appeared a certain way. Sacred spaces weren't designed only for utility. Symbols weren't decorative. Rituals weren't optional extras. Form mattered because form made order visible. Our modern world likes to pretend that this isn't true. We talk as if authority comes from credentials alone, leadership from efficiency, and seriousness from good intentions. But the persistent return of the word aura tells us something important. You can flatten the language, but you can't erase the reality. Presence refuses to disappear because it's built into how human beings perceive meaning in the world. One of the biggest mistakes we make today is thinking that presence is a cultural trend, something invented by fashion, social media, or modern self-help language. In reality, aura has nothing to do with trends at all. It's older than ideology, systems, and most of the words we use to describe it. Human beings are aesthetic interpreters before they are rational analysts. That doesn't mean we're irrational, it means perception comes first. Long before we evaluate arguments, we read posture. Before we weigh intentions, we sense rhythm. Before we ask what someone believes, we feel whether they are ordered or scattered. This is why authority is often recognized in silence. A calm stillness, a measured way of moving, or speech that doesn't rush or overflow. These signals are processed almost instantly, and they happen below the level of conscious thought. You don't debate them, you register them. They tell you whether someone is stable, whether they're reactive, whether they're worth listening to, or whether you should brace yourself. This pre-verbal reading of authority has always mattered more than people like to admit. It's how elders were recognized before titles, how commanders were followed before formal ranks, and how teachers commanded attention before classrooms were standardized. Or operates beneath ideology because it doesn't ask for permission. You can disagree with someone completely and still recognize their presence. You can agree with someone on paper and still feel uneasy around them. That tension confuses modern people because we are taught that legitimacy should come after argument, not before it. But that's not how humans work. The modern habit of treating presence as superficial comes from a false divide between form and substance. We act as if form is decoration layered onto something more real. In practice, form is how substance becomes visible. Meaning that cannot be perceived might as well not exist. This is why aura isn't optional, and isn't something culture invented. It's a biological, psychological, and civilizational constant. You can suppress it, mock it, and pretend it's irrelevant, but you can't get rid of it. Every society, whether it admits it or not, ends up rebuilding some version of aura, because without it, authority collapses into either chaos or coercion. Authority has never been just something you obey. It's something you recognize first. This is where modern thinking often goes wrong. We talk as if authority begins with rules, contracts, or legitimacy granted on paper. But in reality, authority is felt before it's understood. People sense whether something carries weight long before they agree to follow it. That's why every serious civilization invested so heavily in aesthetics, not as decoration, but as communication. Think about the traditional markers of authority: dress, symbols, architecture, and ritual. None of this was accidental. These weren't cultural flourishes added after the fact. They were essential because form communicates meaning faster than language ever can. You don't need a lecture to understand the difference between a carnival and a classroom. You feel it the moment you walk in. Space teaches you how to behave before anyone gives you instructions. That's not manipulation, it's legibility. This is also why people intuitively distrust authority that looks sloppy, unserious, or improvised. Even if the intentions are good, disorder in form suggests disorder beneath the surface. Humans are remarkably sensitive to that mismatch. Now, this is where we need to be precise. There's a difference between cultivated dignity and artificial image making. Cultivated dignity emerges slowly. It comes from discipline, repetition, restraint, and consistency over time. It doesn't need to announce itself because it doesn't depend on attention. Artificial image making tries to shortcut that process. It focuses on optics without substance. It's loud, fragile, and constantly in need of reinforcement. Aura lives on the first side of that divide. Aura is not branding. It doesn't chase visibility. It doesn't need to explain itself. When authority is real, form grows naturally out of function and moral coherence. The outside reflects the inside. When authority is hollow, form becomes theater, and people can sense the difference almost immediately. That's why aura can't be mass produced. It can't be engineered like a marketing campaign. It's earned or it isn't there at all. One of the easiest ways to misunderstand aura is to confuse it with charisma. They are related, but they are not the same thing, and the difference matters. Charisma burns fast, while aura accumulates slowly. Charisma excites. It pulls attention towards itself. It's energetic, expressive, or magnetic. Aura, on the other hand, doesn't chase attention at all. It changes the atmosphere quietly. People don't feel pulled towards it so much as oriented by it. This difference comes down to the inner life. Charisma can exist without depth. Aura cannot. Aura grows out of things that don't show up quickly on the surface. Self-mastery, consistency, and moral coherence. These qualities take time. They require friction. They require someone to choose restraint when indulgence would be easier. That's why aura can't be faked for long. Performance collapses under pressure. Image fractures over time, but coherence holds. Silence plays an important role here. People with real presence don't feel the need to fill every gap with noise. They're comfortable letting moments breathe. That comfort communicates security. In contrast, constant talking, constant signaling, and constant explanation usually points to insecurity, not confidence. Authority doesn't rush. Aura, in this sense, is best understood indirectly. You don't build it by trying to project it. You build it by ordering your inner life so thoroughly that order begins to appear without effort. Aura is a shadow cast by an ordered soul. You cannot manufacture a shadow. You can only place something solid in the light and let the shadow fall where it may. An interesting thing to note is that aura doesn't disappear on its own. Slowly and politely, it's being pushed out, and often in the name of good intentions. Modern culture wages a quiet war on aura, not through open hostility, but through tone, irony, and casualness that slowly hardens into ideology. At some point, Being informal stopped being about comfort and started being about signaling. Seriousness began to feel suspicious. Dignity started to look like arrogance. And restraint was rebranded as inauthentic. Irony became a kind of cultural armor. If you never take anything seriously, then you never have to risk being wrong. If you never stand fully for something, then you never have to defend it. And if you're always half joking, then you're never fully exposed. But irony dissolves authority. You cannot lead seriously while refusing seriousness itself. As hierarchy flattened, its aesthetic foundations flattened with it. Distinctions became uncomfortable. Symbols were stripped down. Rituals were shortened, softened, or quietly removed. And leaders were encouraged to be relatable rather than dignified, and familiar rather than elevated. The idea was that this would make authority more humane. What actually happened is that authority became thinner and then compensatory. When form disappears, control expands. When respect fades, rules multiply. When presence weakens, procedures take over. And when legitimacy thins, surveillance increases. You can see this everywhere. Institutions that apologize constantly while regulating aggressively. Leaders who perform friendliness while expanding managerial power. Systems that claim to distrust hierarchy but quietly enforces compliance at scale. People feel this contradiction even if they can't actuate it. They feel overmanaged and underled. They feel watched but not guided. And beneath all the language about efficiency and progress, there's a deeper hunger that keeps resurfacing. People want gravity again. They want to feel that someone is steady at the center, that not everything is ironic, provisional, or negotiable. They want authority that doesn't need to constantly explain itself or prove its relevance. In other words, they want aura back. For all the talk of liberation and progress, something subtle has been wearing people down. Constant informality, endless accessibility, and a world where nothing is allowed to feel set apart. And they can feel that reaction beginning. People aren't craving nostalgia, they're craving seriousness. Not heaviness, not cruelty, but weight. A sense that some things matter, enough to be treated with care, restraint, and form. This is why we're seeing the quiet return of things modern culture tried to flatten. Ritual, symbolism, and restraint. This isn't accidental. When everything is casual, nothing feels meaningful. When everything is exposed, nothing feels grounded. Recovering aura doesn't mean becoming theatrical or distant. It doesn't mean reviving old customs for their own sake. Real aura farming, if we're going to use this phrase seriously, requires the opposite of excess. It requires subtraction. It means fewer words, not more. Clear boundaries, not constant access. Deliberate form, not reactive expression. Aura slowly grows because it depends on limits. It depends on someone being willing to say no, to themselves and to others. It depends on patience, consistency, and the refusal to turn everything into content. This is why aura functions as a civilizational glue. It binds people to leaders, institutions, and meanings larger than themselves. It reassures them that order is not just an abstract idea, but something real, visible, and embodied. When aura disappears, society fragments into technique and impulse. When it returns, authority becomes imaginable again, not as domination, but as orientation. You cannot command respect through force. You cannot earn it through familiarity. Respect emerges when order becomes visible, when internal coherence takes form and holds under pressure. When someone's pressure quietly communicates stability, restraint, and seriousness, people recognize it without being told. Aura is not something you project. It is something others discover when coherence becomes undeniable.